Hey guys, welcome to the broadcast. 888-659-3727. God, that's a depressing song. I don't even know why I start with that song. Anyway, welcome to the show. I'm Spencer Kobren. You are listening to and watching The Bald Truth, self-help radio for guys. And unfortunately, for the 40% of hair loss sufferers who are women who get this crazy silent epidemic. And when I say that, when I say it's sad, it is sad. You know, people don't realize how many women deal with hair loss. And it is a silent epidemic of biblical proportions. And for every guy you see walking around dealing with this issue, there's practically a woman. If you know what I mean. Walking around with the same issue. It's about 60% guys, 40% women. That's the way that it is. 2/3 of guys by the age of 35 will suffer with some degree of hair loss. And if you're new to this broadcast, you're just tuning in for the first time. If you're just either watching us on Daily Motion or through the GFQ network, through The Bald Truth, if you're listening to us on Stitcher Radio or iTunes Radio, or now on Clear Channel Radio's iHeartRadio, or wherever you're finding this broadcast, live or on demand, hair loss is probably affecting your life to some degree. You may not know it yet. It may be something that you haven't really thought much about. It may be happening to your brother or to your mother or to your father. But it is affecting your life in some way, shape, or form. I mean, how do you know your dad's not pissed off, wasn't pissed off last week because he woke up and realized, this is it. There's nothing I can do with my hair. This is how I have to look. And now I have these kids that I have to deal with, and this wife and this house and this mortgage and everything that I'm dealing with, and I'm unhappy in my own skin. And maybe he was in a bad mood because of nothing else but his hair loss. Or maybe your neighbor down the block, who initially was going to be an electric engineer, was too depressed to finish school because he was going through the initial throes of hair loss as a young person. It changed his career path, and now he's your pain-in-the-ass neighbor. Now you're laughing. You guys are probably thinking this is ridiculous, but this is how hair loss affects our lives. I bring this up because, these are all stories that I've heard. And you have to realize, again, if you're new to this broadcast, I've been doing this for 16 years. I've been on the air doing this show week in and week out for a long time. And the reason I can do it for so long is because we are all so effed up because of our hair loss. If you're looking at me and you're like, wait a second, this guy appears to have hair in his head. Well, it's a partial sham, and you guys need to know that. I have been lucky enough to stop or slow the progression of my hair loss using FDA-approved medication. I have been lucky enough to camouflage some of my hair loss using some really good scalp concealer, which you guys can purchase yourselves. I don't sell it. And I've been fortunate enough to, kind of come to terms with the fact that, I don't want to be a bald guy. In my life, I will do whatever it takes to try to maintain a semblance of a full-looking head of hair. That's the choice that I've made. I just wasn't equipped to deal with hair loss at an early age, and I have found ways to kind of compensate and to do my best to look okay in my view. Now, don't get me wrong. Because I put myself out there, there are people out there, there are guys out there for years who have goofed on me. And perhaps if I was, a different person, it would have affected me. Some really nasty stuff has been said over the years. But look, it is what it is. This is how I live my life. Now, for those who you are out there saying, bald is great. There's nothing wrong with losing your hair. It's a natural thing. If you're able to deal with it, you guys are the winners. You guys are the guys that should change the channel, change the station, go to a different, online streaming source, find something else to watch. because you've already won. But sadly, most of us who are dealing with this issue are not as comfortable as you guys are. And for you ladies who are like, you know what, I don't understand these guys who are bitching about their hair loss. We're not bitching. We're talking about something that society hasn't given us the opportunity to talk about, to be open about. Society doesn't allow us to mourn our hair. We're looked at as less than. We're looked at as vain. And I'm bringing up that point. It's interesting. You guys will probably see me a lot. This is my favorite cup. It's where I drink my coffee from. And it's a New York Jets cup. And I was being interviewed today by a female reporter, a journalist for a magazine, a major men's magazine. And she said something to me that I found fascinating. She said, Spencer, I have been watching some of your on-demand broadcasts. I've been watching some of the shows on your website. And I noticed that you drink out of a Jets mug. And I'm like, yeah, okay, so? She's like, I just find it ironic since you're talking about such a vain issue. And I just thought to myself, holy cow, this is... She probably won't publish this story now that I'm saying this, but this is what we're dealing with. This is the mentality that we're dealing with. Because I am concerned and open about my hair loss and how it made me feel, and because I do this broadcast, and because I tell people that there are millions of people just like us, that we're not alone, and I give people a platform to talk about this stuff, it is somehow, it's not manly. It's vain. There's an irony there because I'm drinking out of a Jets cup and I'm talking about hair loss. This is the mentality that's out there. Through the mainstream media, through society as a whole. And you know what? It's got to change. Will it change? I don't know. I don't know if it's going to change. Honestly, I don't know. And frankly, if it did change, I'd probably be out of business. But I thought that was interesting. Let me give out the phone number. It's 888-659-3727. It's ironic that I like football and I talk about hair loss. There's some irony there. I don't know. This is the world we live in. Anyway, 888-659-3727. Listen, tonight I want to bring on a couple of guys who you've heard on this program before. One of the biggest friends, one of our greatest friends here at The Bald Truth is Dr. Alan Bauman. He's a guy who's been with us for a long time, calling into the program, part of the International Alliance of Hair Restoration Surgeons, doing some real groundbreaking work in the field of surgical hair restoration. One of the first doctors in the United States to really embrace follicular unit extraction and to not only just incorporate it into his practice, but to evolve his practice to the point where basically now his entire practice is FUE. He also has, he treated a guy that we had on the program about 9 months ago. And this guy won a contest that I'm going to let Dr. Bauman discuss. And his name is Carrie Roman. And Carrie is he's kind of like a Miami Boca Raton, almost like a big figure in that in that community. He's a socialite. He's a promoter. He's a guy that is kind of like at every major event, knows every local celebrity, and is someone who's very out there and very public, who's been dealing with hair loss for a long time. And when Dr. Bauman was running this contest, Carrie was one of the guys that entered the contest and won. Now, if you've ever watched the show before, and Dr. Bauman, please take this in the spirit that it's meant before I pot you up. I'm not a big fan of cosmetic surgery contests, but I think that this was run very tastefully, and I think that it was for, in a sense, kind of for a good cause, because it's really promoting state-of-the-art surgical hair restoration in a way that might not have gotten out there before. So in that sense, I think it was a good idea. But usually I'm not a big fan of someone writing their story and saying, you know what, I'm unhappy with my hair loss. I'd like to win a free hair transplant. But I think that this was run differently. Let me give out the phone number, 888-659-3727. I think that this is Dr. Bauman on line one. Let me say hi to him first, and then hopefully Carrie is on the line as well, and we'll say hi to him. Hey, Dr. B, is that you?
It's me, Spencer. How's everything going tonight?
I'm doing well, man. Hey, listen, I hope you don't mind me saying that, but yeah, I've told you that before. I'm not usually a fan of contests when it comes to cosmetic surgery, but I think
I know your opinion. I know your opinion, and actually, when I told you about the contest, you told me exactly how you felt about it.
Right.
And, so it's not a surprise.
Yeah, but I do think, with that said, you know, I wouldn't discuss it on the air if I didn't think everything turned out really well, and that in the end, what you guys have accomplished is really helping to empower more hair loss sufferers and letting them know what the reality of surgical hair restoration is, and that there is help out there.
Well, good. I'm glad you feel that way, because we did it in the spirit of helping patients who are struggling out there with hair loss, and that was the exact purpose of it, to really get the word out about the technology that we have, the results that we get, and also what the process was like, you know, minute by minute. And of course, you know, we've done a lot of projects together with live surgeries and things like that. And this one just, you know, had a little bit of a different twist and used some different channels to get the word out there. But I think you'll see, and of course you've seen from the results, Carrie's photos, that things are coming along nicely.
Yeah, listen, I did see Carrie's photos, and I will say that I cannot, for some reason, get them to put them on the program tonight. It's just technically impossible. I'm using a new software that is just not making it happen for me. But what I will do is we'll send people to Carrie's Facebook page and also to your website, and people can see the results after 9 months. But I think what's most important, in my view, is to let people hear from Carrie himself how he feels about the procedure. So let me see if this is Carrie on the line. I want to make sure I don't hang up on you. There you go. Hey, is this Carrie?
Hey, yes, it is.
Carrie, how are you, man?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm good. Long time no speak.
I know. Thanks for getting me back on the air.
Well, listen, I wanted to have you back on the air. I wanted to have you on the air with Dr. Bauman to talk about, you know, how you felt. Wait a second. Are you at another party right now?
Actually, you're gonna laugh at this. It's my birthday tonight, so I'm out with my parents and my girlfriend, and I felt so strongly about calling in that I'm making time for this.
Well, first of all, happy birthday. And
thank you.
I hope you really enjoy your day. And what is it like you've been dealing with hair loss for such a long time. You're 9 months out of your surgery. I've seen the pictures, and I have to tell you, it's pretty astounding. I mean, I normally wouldn't say that, but the results are pretty stellar.
I appreciate it. It feels great. I have people coming up to me all the time and saying, you know, now that I'm kind of the spokesperson locally for this. Men, women, people are coming up to me and telling me that they're excited, that they're, proud of me, and that they want more information.
Well, let me ask you this. You've been obviously absent of hair, without hair for a while. I've seen your pictures. You were significantly bald. And now, you didn't have a tremendous procedure. You had what? Dr. Bauman, how many grafts did you have? 2,600, something like that?
2,808.
2,808. So, listen, Carrie, I don't mean to. I know that you're at a function. Is there a way you can kind of step away a little bit, because there's a lot of background noise?
Oh yeah. Hold on 1 second.
All right.
Watch my phone, okay? I'll be right back.
Sure. So
let me walk outside real quick.
I appreciate that. So, 2,808 grafts, in the scheme of things, doesn't seem like a lot, but when you look at Carrie's images, you really see what a significant difference well-placed, robust, follicular units can be, what they can do to somebody, for somebody's
luckily
appearance.
I went to the best.
Yes, well, listen, there's no doubt that Dr. B is a big friend of the show, IHRS member, someone that I've had a tremendous amount of respect for a long time. And honestly, results speak for themselves. And the fact that you've had the results that you've had after a relatively small session, and I'm not saying it's tiny for FUE, but it's still, in the scheme of things, you see stuff online, 4,000 graft cases, and higher. And your results, at least judging from the images that you've presented and that are out there, that you have on your Facebook page and that Dr. Bauman has sent me, it's an impressive result. It's actually a life-changing result. How does your wife feel about it?
She's happy. I mean, obviously she loves me either way, but she's excited. I personally noticed the difference when I went swimming the other day for the first time in a while, and to get out of the pool and just kind of brush your hair back and not think that my scalp is showing. It's a good feeling.
Dude, listen, I can't even imagine. Now, I have never had surgical hair restoration. I'm lucky in that respect that I was able to save a lot of hair. I do think about it all the time, though.
Sorry.
Because, it's okay. I do think about it all the time, though, because I just recently turned 49 years old. I've been able to maintain a lot of hair. I end up, basically painting the back of my scalp, and I think to myself, well, how much easier would my life be if I just went in and had a session or two? And
it'll make it a lot easier.
And then have that done. But Dr. B also understands my reservations, because I still what happens if I start to lose more hair in the front? I want to have that donor bank in the bank, so to speak.
Right.
Right, Dr. Bauman?
Yeah, well, of course that's a concern, but I told you, if you just protect the hair you have and restore the hair you've lost, you're going to be good for at least another decade or so.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing. I'm on the minoxidil, so I'm protecting everything that is still there, and now I have some new hair on top.
Now, have you chosen not to use finasteride?
I'm using 82M.
Okay, so you're using a topical minoxidil preparation, but you're not using you're not using Propecia.
No, not yet.
Okay, now, Dr. B, obviously, and Carrie, maybe you can tell me, did you have concerns about using Propecia, or you just felt like this was enough for now?
I just felt it was enough for now. I didn't rule it out totally, but I just, this is all new to me, so far so good.
So, Dr. B, what are your thoughts? Now that he's had the work done, he's 9 months out, he's doing well. Obviously, you're not going to see full growth until about 12 months, maybe even a little longer. As his physician, would you suggest that he gets on finasteride eventually?
Well, originally in the treatment plan, we talked about all of the different tools in the toolbox to protect Carrie's hair, because what we wanted to do is we wanted to make whatever hair he had left part of the solution instead of part of the problem.
Right.
So in that discussion, we talk about compounded minoxidil, like the 82M that he's on right now, which is a fantastic, actually the best topical medication I've seen in 17 years. Way stronger than the Rogaine, in my opinion, and a heck of a lot easier to use. Less irritating, less greasy, less gooey. So it's perfect, for patients who want to use a topical. We did talk about finasteride and Propecia, and we have compounded versions of that as well called Fin Plus that we often prescribe. And we also talked about laser cap. Between laser and minoxidil and finasteride, you've got a lot of areas covered.
So why isn't Carrie using a laser cap at this point? It seems like it would be the perfect time, especially the initial few months of growth.
Well, Carrie, are you using laser?
I'm sorry. Why aren't I using it? I haven't really invested in that yet.
Yeah, so that wasn't included in the prize, so to speak.
Right.
But Carrie's got to decide. But the interesting thing is that obviously right now he's in a full-blown hair growth phase. So
right.
His life is changing in terms of his hair restoration. If he wants to improve it even further, these are the things that he could add. He could add great nutritionals, laser cap. He could add PRP treatments. There's a lot we could do.
Well, here's what I noticed right away from his images. And people don't, especially people who are just tuning in, who don't understand how much just a little hair, how much of a difference a little hair can make in someone's appearance. Now that he has a naturally, you did a really good job as far as creating a mature hairline, Dr. Bauman. And there's a natural recession. There's a slight, at least it appears to be a slight widow's peak. I have to look more closely. But, the placement was really, really good. That framing of the face, even with that light smattering of hair, and when I say light smattering of hair, it's pretty significant. It's combable, good quality, dense hair, especially for 9 months. Carrie, you look at least 5 years younger, in my opinion.
Why, thank you.
And
I like to think 10 years younger, but I'll take 5.
Well, I have to see.
I think he looks 10 years.
I'd have to. Well, what's the difference, really? Does it make so much of a difference? You look younger, dude. You look better.
Yeah.
Enjoy that fact.
I am enjoying it.
I mean, you really. I mean, it's a pretty amazing process, and I think, Dr. Bauman, and correct me if you think I'm wrong, but I always say I think the best patients for surgical hair restoration are the guys who maybe a little bit more mature and who have had hair loss for a long period of time, meaning that they're used to having that absence of hair. And then once they get some hair back, they realize just, you don't need that. You don't need to move that much hair to really change the appearance and to make an older hair transplant patient happy, as opposed to someone who's very young who just had a full head of hair, say, 5 years ago. They're expecting a hell of a lot more. Would you agree with that?
Right. Well, I think there's a lot of reasons why patients who are more mature, also in age and psychological maturity as well, don't need as much hair. I mean, there's a lot of reasons for that. If you take a guy who's in his 20s with severe hair loss, like you say, it was just a couple of years ago, he had a lot of hair. He was in his teenage years.
Right.
And you've got to recreate something, and he may have something in his mind that's like an adolescent hairline. And an adolescent hairline requires a lot to cover a lot of area, and it requires a super dense result. So almost by default, you need more hair and more density to create that.
But what I've noticed over the years is the least happy patients, the guys who are out there banging their drum, who really believe that they've been misled or disfigured in some way. And I'm not talking about the guys who've really been disfigured. I'm talking about the guys who may be a little immature, a little young to have surgery. The physician probably should have chosen a little bit more carefully as far as patient selection. And these are the guys who don't seem happy with the process. It's the guys like Carrie, who really had a significant amount of hair loss, that I think really appreciate the state-of-the-art surgical hair restoration.
I'm ecstatic, and when I meet guys who, when I tell them, because I feel that's my mission, I'm telling these guys that are like in their 20s and 30s and 40s, I'm saying if I knew back then what I know now, I would have gone on, one of those, the pills or the 82M,
right?
Because then why not stop it while you can and keep more hair?
Well, that's the whole thing. Early prevention is the key, and hair transplants or hair pieces, whatever people decide to do, the process is much easier and looks much more natural and is much more effective if you have as much of your own hair as possible. So the more of your own hair you have, the better off all these processes are. And that's what a lot of guys don't understand. They're like, you know what, I'll wait till I lose my hair and then I'll get a hair transplant or then I'll get a hair piece. Sometimes it's too late.
Yeah, it's old school. That's old school thinking because, the technology today, Spence, we can go in between the existing hairs. And if you protect the existing hairs, then the transplant and the whole restoration is going to look a heck of a lot better.
Yeah, and to me, it really is about...
Guys, I only have like another minute left. I got to get back to my party.
Yeah, listen, Carrie, I'll let you go. I want to thank you. I'll keep Dr. B on the line. We want to talk about a couple of other things. Congratulations.
All right.
Happy birthday. I'm really happy for you.
It.
And, keep up the good work.
Yeah,
happy
anything
birthday,
you need.
Carrie. We'll see you on Friday at the big hair happy hour.
Yeah, this is going to be a big party. We keep getting more RSVPs.
Listen, man, have a great night, all right? Thanks a lot for the call.
All right. Thanks, Spencer.
All right.
Okay, bye.
Hey, Dr. B. Yeah,
hey,
listen.
So part of Carrie's story is that in his not his plea, but in his video to get people to vote for him as the winner of the hair transplant contest, he said that if he wins, he's going to throw a big party.
And this is
Friday is the big party, so that's what we're talking about.
Well, are you guys gonna videotape the party? Can we get to see a little bit of it?
Well, we're definitely going to have a photographer there. I'm not sure how much video we're going to do, but I'm sure it'll appear on Facebook as his original.
So this is like Carrie's hair loss coming out party, his hair restoration coming out party.
It's a pretty big deal. Yeah, absolutely.
That's pretty exciting, man. It really is. I love hearing stories of guys who've had successful hair restoration or who have done well on finasteride, and what you read online, sadly, is a lot of times it's the guys who are out there who are unhappy, who have had the bad experiences, who have not done well on finasteride or Propecia or minoxidil, who are just hoping against hope that they're going to find something else out there besides what we have right now that works. And when you hear somebody who's gone through the process, that has had success, and that has said, listen, this has changed my life, I think that's really important to get out there to the masses so that they understand, you know what, if you're unhappy with what you're currently dealing with, there are ways to deal with it. Now, none of them are perfect, and I think you'll admit that, Dr. B.
Well, that's true.
But I think there's hope for just about everyone. And I'm going to transition into something else that I wanted to discuss with you. This week there was a lot of news about a arthritis drug that was basically used to reverse alopecia universalis or alopecia areata in a patient at Yale University. And for the first time, this is to me, this is incredible news because this is the first time that alopecia universalis has ever been effectively reversed, and it's been done with an FDA-approved drug. I wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Right. Oh, it's probably the most exciting news we've heard in a long time. For those of us who treat hair loss, when we see patients that come in with alopecia areata, totalis universalis, we have a limited toolbox and nothing that's been proven to work. Now, granted, this is just one patient, one time. The information looks really good. The photos look outrageous, so we're all really excited. We're going to have to repeat this, obviously. Repeat this result. Hopefully, we will. But it's definitely the most exciting news that I've heard because we have these patients come in all the time. Every month we're seeing patients with alopecia totalis, universalis. There's no donor hair in those cases. It's a severe autoimmune condition, and there's honestly no good treatment, perhaps up until now.
Well, this particular doctor at Yale really went off of a study that was conducted by Dr. Angela Christiano, and she used this arthritis drug. And I have to tell you, obviously it's out there. The information is out there about the drug. But my biggest fear is if I give the brand name on the air, even though people are going to read about it, we're going to have these guys who are going to go out in the gray market and they're going to try to pop this pill, which could be a very dangerous situation. And there's going to be guys out there that are going to take this pill just to hopefully reverse their male pattern baldness. And that's my biggest concern about even talking about this.
Right. Well, we know the trigger for male pattern hair loss. We know that that DHT is the trigger causing the miniaturization. So it's a totally different mechanism, than male pattern, than androgenetic alopecia. We're talking about alopecia areata, totalis, and universalis. They're two very, very different
when I spoke to Dr. King about this, who was a dermatologist that treated this patient, and again, just to backtrack, he decided to treat this patient based on some findings of Dr. Angela Christiano when she used this arthritis drug to experiment and to treat mice who suffered with alopecia or had alopecia areata, and it seemed to reverse that process. He then just decided, this is an FDA-approved drug. This kid came into my office with plaque psoriasis, and he has alopecia universalis. Let's try to treat this guy and with this drug and basically kill two birds with one stone. And it worked miraculously, which is unbelievable. What he tells me is, he thinks that it's possible that a topical version of this drug might help with some of the inflammatory issues that's associated with male pattern baldness. So maybe the guys who aren't doing really well on finasteride alone, where it's not really stopping or reversing that process, there might be another component, and that could be a certain inflammatory component that this may address.
Right. Well, that's interesting. In the compound of minoxidil that we just talked about that Carrie is on, there is a small amount of an anti-inflammatory drug that we have in there.
Right.
So we have anti-inflammatory topicals. We've used those in combination with minoxidil, Retin-A. When we put the fluocinolone in there, we do definitely see that the combination of minoxidil, Retin-A, and some of these other things definitely enhances the hair growth. So maybe he's onto something. And if there is an inflammatory component to someone's hair loss, then maybe they're on the right track.
Well,
but obviously, with alopecia totalis, this was like a spectacular result.
Well, first of all, it's insane. It's insane that there's. This is when people contact me through the American Hair Loss Association and contact us through the IHRS or through the Bald Truth, especially the parents of children who are dealing with alopecia areata. People are so lost. They're willing to try anything or do anything or buy anything just for a little bit of hope. And the truth is, while some treatments, corticosteroids and different types of injections and different abrasives have been shown to work to some degree on especially smaller areas of alopecia areata, and now there are some doctors who are claiming that PRP may be helping. There really hasn't been anything that has been effective for the long term. These results are absolutely insane, and I can't even imagine the hope that this is spurring in the alopecia areata community. I was contacted by someone who is pretty active in the community, and at least according to this person, it's incredible news. People are very hopeful, but they're also a little fearful of the possible dangers of using this drug.
Well, the medication essentially knocks out your immune system, so there are some serious dangers to that. I mean, your immune system does a lot of things, right? Keeps you from getting infections, keeps you from getting cancer.
Right.
I mean, if you completely knock out your immune system, it puts you at risk for a lot of bad stuff.
But I think Dr. King is under the impression that they may be able to treat, say, for instance, alopecia universalis, where it's total hair loss all over the body. Obviously, a medication in pill form is going to be the most effective and easiest to comply with. He's thinking that intermittent therapy may be something that is possible, or maybe one strong dose, on a monthly or bi-monthly period could be effective. The hair will start to cycle, and while the immune system may be suppressed temporarily, there still may be a chance to have a good immune system while knocking this out, and then just having to retreat. And that's
right, well, that's what medicine's all about, right? Titrating it till you get the best result with the least side effects. I mean, that's what we do.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting stuff. I wanted to talk to you about that because obviously, yes, your main focus is surgical hair restoration and the medical treatment of androgenetic alopecia, but I can imagine that guys, and women are coming into your office because you are a hair loss specialist with alopecia areata, and you really just kind of have to throw up your hands and tell them the truth. And that's got to hurt.
So I've had some good success with small areas of alopecia areata with PRP. So we've used PRP plus extracellular matrix like A-Cell and some other things like the Bio-D Restore, which is a placental extract. And doing those injections, we've gotten a complete reversal of small areas of alopecia areata. But, we have not had such good success with large areas, totalis, in other words, where they've got massive zones of hair loss.
Yeah, well, I'm very excited about that. Listen, I'm cautiously optimistic. My fear is, and I've said this before because I'm already seeing it happen on Bald Truth Talk, there are these young guys who will probably get their hands on this medication because it is FDA approved and people can, you can buy it on these online pharmacies. And, my concern is they're going to be popping this pill, thinking that maybe it's going to reverse their hair loss. They're going to destroy their immune systems. And they're going to be in some big trouble. And, this is a warning to all of you guys who are watching this broadcast or have seen the interview on thebaldtruth.com. Please do not screw with this medication. I know you guys are all out there trying to do this gray market stuff, experimenting with these different topicals. This is serious stuff, and you can end up really damaging your life.
Yeah, and if they are buying on the gray market, you don't even know really what you're getting or what the potency is. Of course, the medication that he used, Dr. King uses, it's quite expensive if you're getting the real thing. So,
right.
If you're not paying thousands of dollars per month, you're probably not getting the real deal. So
that's actually a good point.
It's a good warning. And, a lot of patients come in that we've seen, have opted for generic finasteride and so forth, and they're going to online websites, and they say, oh, yeah, it's coming in pink pills on a purple box or whatever. I mean, and it's no wonder that their hair measurements are just diminishing.
I think that's interesting.
They're not on real medication.
That's interesting that you say that because that seems to be happening a lot online. And I also noticed that maybe there's some I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of generic finasteride as far as, once you're already using the brand name and you're doing well with the brand name. I have known people in my personal life, and people who have contacted me over the years, who have decided to switch because they wanted to save a couple of bucks. And then all of a sudden they lost ground. And I'm not saying that some of these generics aren't real. I know that, basically they have to have the same molecular makeup as the brand name. But there's got to be some slight, differential there. Otherwise, why would people who are using brand then switch generic all of a sudden lose ground?
Well, Spencer, there's no question in my mind that I've never seen more people on generic medications who are losing hair. I mean,
Right.
It's unbelievable. I mean, it's just no question in my mind. Remember, 75% of my patients may never need a hair transplant. They're on medical management.
Right.
So I'm seeing a huge volume of patients. And remember, also I have probably between 8,000 and 9,000 Propecia patients.
Right.
So those are brand names.
Brand name.
15 years we've been prescribing brand name Propecia, dispensing it out of the office. And, I can understand patients on tough economic times. They want to switch over. Maybe they want to split the 5 milligram generics or whatever. But I'm telling you, I see a lot of those people with diminishing hair counts. And I don't see that when they're on the name brand and they're being consistent with name brand.
And I'm really glad. I'm really glad to hear that coming from you, because, like you said, you have 9,000 patients that you prescribe this medication to, and I know for sure. I mean, people. Listen, I have no stock in Merck. Merck is not sponsoring this broadcast. There's no reason for me to tell you guys to use the brand name. As far as it, it doesn't benefit me in any way. The bottom line is, it just really seems to be a fact that for whatever reason, at least when guys switch from brand to generic, in many cases they lose ground. So there has to be something to this. And the fact that Dr. Bauman is reiterating this and basically agreeing and saying he sees it in his practice, I mean, I think that speaks volumes.
We see it. I mean, we measure it, so we know. Patients come in every 90 days for hair check measurements. We go to the same area of the scalp. We're doing a cross-sectional trichometry measurement, which is a scientifically repeatable measurement. And so we know it's not every case, not every time, but more now than ever. That's in our questionnaire. We ask you, are you on oral treatment? Are you on Propecia? Are you on finasteride? And then if the numbers are down, I'm like, wait a minute, are you on generic or are you on the name? It's like we have to go that step further to find out what are they actually taking.
Sure.
And that's one of the reasons why we went to a compounding pharmacist and said, listen, can we quality control the amount and potency of finasteride in an off-label compounded version?
Right.
And when they said yes, and that as soon as finasteride was off patent, boom, we went out and we did that.
Right.
So that's why we went out there, to give somebody an alternative to the generics, but not as expensive as the name brand. Somewhere in the middle is the cost, of the compounded version, and we also had the opportunity to add some nutraceuticals to it too. So
well, I don't.
And other stuff too.
I don't know if you've ever heard of this, but there was one guy that contacted me that was on name brand Propecia for about 7 years. And then he went over and he had no adverse side effects. He was doing well on the drug. He switched over to a generic, and then he started to experience sexual side effects. Have you ever seen that in your practice?
That I haven't seen, but sometimes when patients switch therapies, they just seem to be more prone to changes. It's
Right.
how it is. So I don't know. I mean, who knows? I mean, the issue of sexual side effects, could have been coincidental, could have been something else with age and sleep-wake cycles. I mean, nobody's asking these patients, are they smokers, drinkers, partiers?
Right.
I mean, nobody's doing that. Are they drug abusers? I mean, nobody's asking this about people with sexual side effects, and all of the above affect libido and performance.
Well, you do know that every time we talk about this on the broadcast, I will get 50 emails, maybe more, from people who have either had adverse sexual side effects, claim to have adverse sexual side effects, people who are cheerleading those who are, talking about having adverse sexual side effects. The truth is, sometimes I find it's becoming, not sometimes, it's becoming more and more difficult to talk about not only my experience, my positive experience on finasteride, but the positive experiences of others who have, really done well on this drug without any adverse side effects. And I'm noticing that more and more doctors are kind of even wanting to shy away from the conversation with me, especially on the air. I mean, what do you think of that?
Well, they attack my YouTube videos, my blog posts, Facebook page. I mean,
yeah.
It just comes with the territory now. And like you said, we're not here being sponsored by, big pharma. That's never been the case. We're just trying to do the best job for our patients. And with any treatment, like even the new treatment for alopecia totalis, you're going to have to weigh risks and benefits.
That's right.
And let the science show what it shows. And let's focus on real science.
Absolutely. I think that's well said. Go ahead, finish your thought.
I was just going to say, let's focus on real science. And so, when it comes down to a group of physicians that we like, know, and trust in a very high quality editorial board, peer-reviewed journal, versus an online survey where done by some physicians or a physician who maybe didn't even meet the patients in person or even bothered to do a blood test, much less check their driver's license to see if they're using the correct name.
That's right.
Then we have to, not to say that we discount that survey, we just have to put it in perspective.
But you said a mouthful. I know you're talking about the Irwig study, but it was a survey. And that's what's why. And it was a survey of those who have already discussed and who became a part of an online group, an online forum, discussing the adverse side effects, the sexual side effects of finasteride. So it wasn't as though they even went outside of that group. They were just focusing on, Irwig was just focusing on this particular group of guys who already had and were discussing adverse sexual side effects from this drug. So
and convinced that they had it. So
convinced
of the cause. Obviously.
And convinced of the cause. Now, again, it's important that it's not discounted because I do believe that there is a subset of guys who are experiencing these real side effects. But when you take a look at the data, and the data is very clear, and I speak to, over the years, thousands of people who have used this drug. You have treated thousands of people, and there are hundreds of doctors who have treated thousands of people who are in this industry. None of us have any stake in Merck. None of us, it doesn't benefit us in any way to say, this stuff works. Frankly, as far as being a hair transplant surgeon, you would benefit more if there were, you would just continue to be able to keep moving hair.
Well, at first blush, you would think that. People used to say, well, even my colleagues, some of them who are in charge of very large national multi-center clinics would say, well, we're not in the business of helping people protect their own hair. We're in the business of surgery. And,
right.
And I profoundly disagree with that. I consider myself a hair restoration physician, and no matter what method we use to help people protect their hair or get a full head of hair, whether it's surgery or medications or lasers or topicals or oral or nutritionals, whatever, lifestyle changes, stress reduction, that's all part of what we do.
Yeah, and
I do.
And I agree with you, and I disagree with the large chain clinics who, at one point, I think things have changed a little bit. They were working with the pharmaceutical companies, but they weren't really promoting the drug, and it was like this weird, Merck and these companies were trying to get involved with these large chain clinics, but the large chain clinics were really almost turning. They were claiming they were working together. They were taking certain, allegedly, there was some sort of financial connection there, but they weren't really promoting the drug for patients, and that was very odd to me. But at this point, sadly, far less young patients are starting to, early intervention. They're really afraid to take finasteride, and they're not going to be able to take advantage of what we have today, and that is
they're being scared of this process. Well, I think we spend a lot of time talking about. We used to spend a lot of time talking about the benefits of finasteride, and now that discussion turns to risks and benefits and alternatives.
Right.
And today we have more tools in the toolbox as alternatives than we did before.
That's true.
We have better compounded topicals. We have better laser light devices that you could do at home. You don't have to come to the office. So there's a lot of different options. Even PRP, a nice option. Like PRP is like a lazy man's hair growth treatment, right? Because you just do it like once a year.
Right.
Now.
Right.
So,
Well, I just think that it's unfortunate that the drug has been vilified when, in fact, it's helped so many millions of people and so many guys out there who could who could continue who are continuing to benefit and who can benefit for the first time. You know, there's a guy that has a hair loss newspaper that kind of advertises to the hair loss industry. And this is a guy who's been in the industry for a long time. He ended up having a couple of hair transplants by a large chain clinic. And, you know, he wrote an article basically saying that, you know, he's been on the drug for 10 years. And based on the information that was coming out, including Irwig's study, this guy decided to stop taking finasteride. And I don't know if you know who I'm talking about. He's an older guy. He's been in the business for a long time, and he has a newspaper that is geared towards the industry.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
And I thought to myself, how is this even possible? You know, I mean, this guy's supposed to understand. I mean, what this says, what this illustrates, is how powerful the internet, the mainstream media, and you know, the attorneys who are jumping on this bandwagon have been.
Yeah, it shifts public opinion, and but you know, you have to fight the hype with the knowledge, and it just takes time. It takes time to explain. You know, it takes time to explain it and let everybody come to their own decisions. But you're right. I think it's a sad thing that, you know, patients are not going to opt for this specific preventative therapy as quickly as they might have years ago.
Well, before I let you go, let me ask you, in your practice, obviously I'm sure there's more resistance, but are you seeing a tremendous amount of resistance, or are patients, once they're educated, are they willing to get on the drug?
I'm not seeing a tremendous amount of resistance. I mean, you know, of course, when it was on the nightly news, there was a lot of questions, a lot of emails. Should we be on it? Should we not be on it? And you know, again, we just presented the information. There were some patients who elected to take a hiatus, and then here we are a couple of years later now, and they're losing ground. And the discussion is, well, hey, where are we now, Dr. B? You know, what's the status? And you got to give it to them straight. I mean, look, the label changed, so there are reports of this. I tell them my experience with my, you know, almost 10,000 patients, 8,000 patients, and let them make their own decision.
But what do you think about that label change? Do you think the label change based on, I mean, they have to change the label based on reports. It doesn't necessarily mean it's based on clinical data.
Correct. Well, it's a report. It's not a direct link or cause. And so, you know, sometimes, again, you know, when the hype comes out, oh, my God, there's a label change, you have to kind of understand, well, what's the backstory here? You know, you can't just listen to the nightly news and read the headlines.
I mean, I could start a website saying that, you know, that finasteride caused me to have, you know, severe anxiety attacks. And I can get, you know, 100 other guys to, you know, who think they have anxiety from finasteride to come on and start talking about it. And all of a sudden, it's going to have to be put on the label if enough people complain.
Correct. So there's, you know, there could be you could start a campaign and have people send off those letters. But, you know, that's what people need to understand, that there's no causation here. You know, there's just a questionable relationship, and the FDA doesn't know. You know, right. They just get a couple letters, and then boom, they got to, you know, put it through their process, and so that's how the FDA works.
Yeah, but I'm watching the news, and I'm seeing it every night. I'm seeing these, you know, these law firms who are saying, you know, who are advertising, have you had are you taking Propecia? Are you suffering from impotence, sexual dysfunction, loss of libido, blah blah blah? You know, you may be entitled to compensation. And
well, Spencer, look at what happened with hormone replacement in women. It's the same kind of problem. Like, you know, the amount of people that could benefit from hormone replacement therapy, women in perimenopause and postmenopausal women who could benefit. I mean, that whole segment of the industry and all those millions and millions of women that could benefit from that treatment was basically squashed by a bunch of news reports, you know, about the risks of cancer and heart disease and stroke.
Well, now it's happening with testosterone replacement.
I know. Well, now it's going the other. Yeah, now it's on the men's side.
So all these guys are benefiting from, you know, having, you know, their testosterone levels normalized. Now are really. I mean, listen, there's no doubt that there is a risk in doing that to some degree. Why wouldn't I do it? Because I don't want to lose any more hair. That's my thing. You know, I'm not going to take any human growth hormone or testosterone. I mean, believe me, if it wasn't for my hair, I'd be jacked right now. I have a neighbor who takes HGH and testosterone. And
he's got no hair.
He's my age. Well, the thing is, he has no hair loss in his family, and he had no hair loss. But I will tell you this: with the HGH and the testosterone, he was also given DHEA. And for the first time, he noticed that he was dealing with some hair loss. He contacted me. I asked him exactly what he was on. And when he told me he was on DHEA, I said, drop the DHEA. Talk to your doctor first. And he did. 4 months later, his hair loss subsided. And so there was definitely that correlation. So he was lucky. But for me, with the genetics that I have, if I start to supplement my body, add extra, synthetic testosterone or HGH, there's a good chance I'm going to lose more hair. So
right. So if you're androgen sensitive and you're doing these things like testosterone, or even things to increase your testosterone or DHT, like creatine, a lot of guys don't realize they're taking these creatine supplements after they work out for recovery purposes. We know now. We thought that it was hurting their hair 10 years ago. Now we know why. The clinical studies have been shown in these rugby teams. They did creatine cycles, and they measured their DHT, and the DHT went up.
And that's interesting that you say that, because when I was around 30, I got into working out again. I was into working out a lot in high school. Around 30, I got into working out again pretty heavily, and I was taking creatine, and I noticed that my hair loss accelerated. Now, I was getting jacked. I was really working out hard. I felt stronger. And there were other supplements that were probably not great to take at the time as well. But as soon as I stopped taking that and kind of just went on, at the time I was doing the zone diet, I noticed a cessation of hair loss as well. So there's no doubt in my mind that creatine affects it. And now you guys have real clinical evidence.
Yeah, now we know the data. We know the data there.
Well, Doc, listen, I'm gonna let you go. It's always a pleasure having you on the air. I'm so glad that Carrie had a great experience, and that you're out there helping so many hair loss sufferers, and that you've been...
Thanks so much. I dropped the link in the chat room there on the GFQ network, so if anybody wants to check out the Facebook page, you can actually Google Carrie Roman, C-A-R-Y Roman, Neil Graft Facebook, and it like pops right up. It's like on it's like the first thing you see. So if people want to see his photos, what you've been talking about during the show, they could certainly check out that link there.
You know what I'll do as well, when we post this show, I'll make sure that Carrie's pictures are connected to the post.
Oh, cool. Great idea.
All right, man. Listen, I appreciate the call, and we'll talk soon.
All right, Spencer. Thanks so much for having us on.
You got it. My pleasure.
Right.
Take care.
Have a great rest of the show.
Thanks. 888-659-3727 is the phone number. That's 888-659-3727. That was Dr. Alan Bauman. You can check him out at baumanmedical.com. You can go to ihrs.org and check out his IHRS profile. Obviously, guy's been doing hair transplants for a long time. One of our founding members. He's been with the IHRS for, I think, since almost the first year, maybe the second year, but one of the first longtime members of the International Alliance of Hair Restoration Surgeons, and a guy that is really... he's done a lot of great work in the field. He knows how I feel about low-level laser therapy for hair loss, and I'm starting to come around. He's been trying to get me to come around for a long time, but the truth is I just didn't see the data that I saw was very confusing. And again, I'm a layman. I'm not a doctor. I think I'm a relatively bright guy, though, and I could read, and I usually understand these studies. So it wasn't something that was really that apparent to me as far as a significant amount of people getting really great results from low-level laser therapy or low-level laser light therapy. But I'm starting to see things differently now. I'm seeing more and more guys who are coming to me, who are coming through our resources, and women saying, you know what, this seems to be working. And there's this correlation to the data. So it does seem to be working for a certain segment of the population. So to me, why not? If it's going to possibly help you, if you've exhausted some of your other options, including you guys, who are, might not have done well in finasteride or who are scared to use finasteride, low-level laser light therapy might be an option. Now, I'm not endorsing it through the American Hair Loss Association at this point, You're not going to see our seal on anybody's products, even though, I mean, listen, we'd love to take the money. Love to do it. Love to work out some sort of a licensing agreement with one of these companies and take their money, but I've decided not to do that. So currently, my recommendation is, maybe there's no harm in it. Maybe it can help you. And according to Dr. B, is the biggest proponent that I know of low-level laser light therapy, or one of the biggest proponents. It's helped a lot of his patients. So I don't know. That's all I have to say on that. 888-659-3727. We have phone calls, but I'm going to take a break. When we come back, we will be taking your calls. I also want to talk to you about some interesting stuff in the world of internet broadcasting as it relates to the bald truth. So we'll get back to that and talk about that and take your calls when we come back. 888-659-3727. Stay with us. Hey, guys, welcome back. 888-659-3727. Tuning into the Hair Loss Show. This is The Bald Truth. I'm Spencer Kobren. I have to tell you, the heat in this studio is oppressive. I think that's the right word. It's ridiculous how warm it is, especially in the summertime, and there's nothing I can do about it. Because I got to keep down the room noise. And the studio's in my home. Now I can build out the walls a little bit. Maybe add some sort of different ventilation so it's not going to be as noisy when I put the air on. That's an investment I don't really want to make. And maybe I guess I can deal with the heat a little bit. But it's really hot right now. Could barely breathe. 888-659-3727 is the toll-free number. I want to thank Dr. Alan Bauman for calling in the first hour, and of course, his patient Carrie Roman. I think it's important for people to call in who have had great procedures, who have had life-changing work done, whether it's surgical hair restoration, or if they decide to wear a piece, whatever it is. Guys who have been able to change their lives for the better, who aren't crippled, who are not within the grip of hair loss 24 hours, 7 days a week, who have figured out a solution for them that works for them. That I love to hear. I love our message forum. BaldTruthTalk.com it really is a great place for people to share their information and to learn from each other. But a lot of times it's just a bitch fest. And I understand that. I get that. I was totally and profoundly affected by my hair loss. That's why I do this thing. That's why, this is my show. I talk about hair loss. How crazy is that? I understand that the other day, a few weeks ago, somebody else called the Howard Stern show. This is from what I was told, and brought up that old bet that the Stern show made, or that Howard made with us, saying that we can come in, check out his hair, whatever it is, and he bet us $50,000. And then when my guy called in and said, we'll take the bet. We never got a call back. Well, apparently that was brought up on his program again. And he used some expletive, allegedly, or said something negative about what I do and who I am. But what I find interesting is the relevance of what we do here on The Bald Truth. That all these years later, this guy is still affected by what somebody said about him on the radio 12 years ago. Not what I said. I never said that Howard Stern was wearing a hairpiece, or thought that Howard Stern was wearing a hairpiece, or cared if Howard Stern was wearing a hairpiece. Frankly, I would never want to out anybody in the who's a celebrity who's dealing with hair loss. That's not my style. That's not what I do. But, this broadcast, what we do here affects so many people. The subject matter affects so many people that it's important to people. You don't think that if he actually is losing his hair, you don't think he's watched this show or listened to this show? I can guarantee that he has, if in fact he's dealing with hair loss. Probably still thinks I'm a jerk because somehow he thinks that I'm trying to out him for wearing a hairpiece when I don't know if he's wearing a hairpiece. I don't care if he's wearing a hairpiece. I would never, ever do that. Anyway, I'm rambling. 888-659-3727. I just love to hear, though, I love to hear stories of guys who have had success, who have gotten past this grip. Now, we have a guy who's on hold right now who sadly has not had success, who has not been able to get past his hair loss, who has lived his life under a hat and miserable since he started to deal with this disease of the spirit. I think this is Joe. Let's see if this is Joe. Hey, Joe, is that you?
Yes. If you're so hot in your studio, I think you should have your staff apply ice packs to your body, multiple ice packs. That might provide a cooling agent for you.
That's not a bad idea. Maybe I'll hire some hot-looking broads, and they can just, rub my body down with ice. How would you? You'd probably like to see that, Joe.
We're not regressing now, are we?
No.
No, if you apply topical ice packs to your body, seriously, it could be a cooling agent.
We'll figure something out. I actually made a makeshift air conditioner that was relatively quiet, but it still wasn't quiet enough. I heard it through my mic, so I'm unable to use it. But we're working on it.
Oh. Okay, well, I want to I know you have other calls. I want to discuss just two things with you tonight, if you don't mind. First of all, I wanted to congratulate you on your excellent interview of Dr. King of Yale University.
Well, thank you.
But initially, I was quite agitated at your report, to be honest with you, because I'm saying when is you're going to ask the magic question? I'm waiting to hear. And you finally did. I was so elated. I said, God bless this wonderful man, Spencer. You know what that question is?
Hi, my name is.
Sorry, Joe.
My name is.
Joe from Staten Island.
My name is. Excuse me. My name is.
Would you like to may reiterate it?
My name is. My name is. My name is.
Have you heard it? Excuse me.
My name is. My name is. My name is.
Joe from Staten Island.
Joe, I tried to time that when I thought you were taking a pause. I'm sorry that I interrupted what you were saying.
No, it's not a problem at all. No, I'm glad you posed the $1 million because I would say at least 98% of your audience suffers from nail pad baldness, as opposed to alopecia areata.
But also, you have to understand, I didn't want to jump right into that. I wanted him to talk about the study, talk about his findings, talk about what he was able to accomplish with his patient, and his main focus. That's really what it was about. Listen, while 98% of my listeners and viewers and readers are dealing with androgenetic alopecia, there is a percentage of people out there who watch this broadcast who are suffering from alopecia areata, totalis, and universalis. And while this isn't really their platform, they do contact me. And it is a devastating, debilitating, disfiguring disease that could strike at any time. And when I heard this news, I was just like, what? I mean, I've been doing this for forever. Like, I've been involved in the hair loss world for at least 20 years. And the fact that this was accomplished was unbelievable to me. And then I was even more elated when I found out, and maybe it's because, I like her so much and she's done so much great work in this field and has worked so hard to try to put the pieces together of this puzzle, this hair loss puzzle. The fact that it was Christiano who basically initiated this entire process by studying this drug in her lab on mice. And she found out that this arthritis drug was able to reverse alopecia areata in mice. Now, obviously, it was Dr. King took the initiative and decided to treat a human being with this drug because, it is FDA approved, and he figured he would give it a shot. And you know what? Like he said during the interview, he thought it was going to work, and it wasn't done by accident. This wasn't like, you know what, we're going to treat this guy's psoriasis, and oh my God, look at what's happening. He's growing his hair back. He went in there intentionally. Basically, he thought to himself, I'm going to kill two birds with one stone. And he deliberately prescribed this drug to this patient because he wanted to treat both the patient's psoriasis and potentially treat his alopecia areata, and it worked. That's why he thinks, and that's why I think, based on what he was telling me, that this is something that can be duplicated. And that even though it was only done on one patient, it's groundbreaking. Usually when something like this happens for one participant, for one patient, things are kind of looked at. Maybe people are cautiously optimistic. Maybe things are looked at slightly with a jaundiced eye because they don't know, all the different possible parameters that can be involved in treating a larger population of patients. But there's thought to be one mechanism involved in alopecia areata, and basically the mechanism in layman's terms is that the person's immune system is attacking their hair follicles, and that it's thought to be an autoimmune disease. And this particular drug is able to reverse that because it essentially, in some sense, wipes out your immune system, but not completely, not like chemotherapy or anything. So it's pretty impressive, man. And the fact that he also told me that there's no reason why, once they are able to develop a topical, there's no reason why he wouldn't test it in his lab or test it on his patients who are suffering with androgenic alopecia, especially since we do know there's an inflammatory component to AGA. So maybe those who aren't doing that well on finasteride alone could use an agent like this topically, and then together, essentially, they'll have a cure or a long-term effective treatment.
Yes, Dr. Bauman agreed with your analysis of its possible use in male pattern baldness.
Yes.
But this drug is about $2,000 a month. I don't know if you're aware. I'm sure you're aware of that.
Right now it's about $2,000 a month. But listen, by the time they do their studies and their testing, before the time it becomes something that is going to be used for a large population of people who are suffering with androgenic alopecia areata, eventually there's going to be a generic that's going to take 6 years for that to come out. But there's also going to be companies, probably, and not saying that this is the best thing in the world, but, the patent laws is it patent laws? What am I thinking of, Joe? Well, anyway, in India, you can...
The generics?
Yeah, in India, and I can't think right now, in India, even though a drug may have a brand name and their patent hasn't run out, it is a patent, they can reproduce that drug. So patent laws are different. So there will be Indian versions of this drug that, as we know with Finpecia, even though I'm not a big fan, it seems like Finpecia has been pretty effective over the years, and there's other Indian generics that seem to have been pretty effective over the years. So I'm sure there are going to be cheaper versions of this drug that are going to come to the market that people will be able to get their hands on, that the doctor, especially if they're under a doctor's supervision, it may be something of benefit to them and it may be less expensive. Whatever it is, this drug can potentially help millions of people who are suffering with the most devastating form of hair loss.
But I also believe, in addition to that, many people who suffer from genetic alopecia in some way or another who will get their hands on this drug in the near future, be experimented with either topically or ingesting it orally. Do you agree with that hypothesis?
I agree with it, and I'm really concerned about that. There are these guys who are extremely desperate on especially you see them on the message forums. There are these underground communities of guys who are really experimenting with everything, including the kitchen sink. They're involved with these gray market products, buying from questionable websites and distributors, and you just don't know what the F that they're putting on their head. Now, this is something that they're going to be ingesting that really could have some serious adverse side effects, life-threatening stuff. And there will be those who are so desperate they're going to give it a shot.
Yeah, my arthritis is kind of acting up too. So,
yeah,
I'm just kidding.
There's going to be plenty of guys who are going to be complaining of joint pain who are going to try to get their hands on this drug.
Well, I do suffer from with arthritis of the knee, one of my conditions. So I had to make a visit to my rheumatologist and possibly discuss this.
Well,
no, I'm just kidding. I don't give you my ideas out there. I'm just kidding. At this point, I wouldn't take it.
Yeah, and I wouldn't advise you to take it, Joe. And just you know, it's first of all, this drug was recently approved here in the United States by the FDA. This is in 2012. It's still not approved in Europe. Usually, it seems to be the other way around. Usually, things are kind of like put through in Europe first and then approved here by the FDA. But it hasn't been approved in Europe based on the side effect profile. So there's much greater chance of drug-resistant tuberculosis, according to what I've read about this drug. There is a much greater chance of, different immune disorders and different types of diseases that, normally, and infections that would normally be knocked out by just a reasonably functioning immune system. So there's a potential of harm. Now, this kid who had the treatment it's obviously got to be a radical change in his life. He's not only grown back a full head of hair, he now has his eyebrows, his eyelashes, his body hair, pubic hair. And this is a guy that hasn't had hair. And he started to suffer with alopecia areata at the age of 2. So he lived his entire life basically hairless. And now, all of a sudden, not only has this helped with his plaque psoriasis, he now has a full head of hair. That must be insane. I can't even imagine how this guy is feeling. I'm thinking about interviewing him. CNN did a Skype interview with this kid. And I got to tell you, man, the mainstream media is so effed up when it comes to hair loss. It is effing ridiculous. Even CNN, in my view, does a silly story when it comes to this incredible breakthrough. It was ridiculous. They concentrate on the kid saying that he wants to grow, he always wanted to grow a hockey player mullet. And they actually wrote about that and used that as part of their video online. Instead of concentrating on the seriousness of this and how this is going to really affect his life. It's just, I have to tell you, man, it's not only distasteful, it's just, I just think it's irresponsible and it's inappropriate. This is a real breakthrough. There are millions of people who are really suffering with this, and that's what they focused on. And you see that across the board in the mainstream media.
No, I definitely understand that. One more point I want to make about this subject, and I have just one more statement. I know the doctor leading the study was a hair loss sufferer, probably a nowhere class 4 to 5. I found that very interesting also. Can you comment on that?
Yeah, he's a young guy, too. He has significant hair loss, and I think that he's probably very interested for himself as well. Now, I don't know how much his hair loss affects him. He's a learned man. He's a very, established physician, and he looked like a wedding ring. So I'm pretty sure that he's married. But look, it affects all of us. It definitely affects all of us.
I'm married, kind of. It affects me.
I know, Joe.
Well, we say I'm married on paper.
Yes, you are.
Now, just one more final point of the other callers.
Yeah.
I understand that doctors such as Dr. Cole now and Dr. Bauman are using a different form of A-cell called Bio-D. I'm not sure exact name of it. Could you please elaborate and comment on that?
Actually, I can't. I will be completely honest with you. Dr. Cole has not contacted me about this. I have not read about it. And I can't even imagine what the different form of A-cell is. To my knowledge, they're not the company itself. They're not manufacturing a different form. I could be wrong.
His representative, 35 years after, I'm sure you're familiar with him. He's on Ball's Truth forums.
Yeah.
He's a patient rep of Dr. Cole, and he said they're using a different form. I don't know exactly what he said.
It's possible it's somehow some adulterated form of ACell, but to my knowledge, and I can be wrong because I'm normally in the loop, and especially if they're doing something different, and if the company themselves is going to be manufacturing a different type of this porcine matrix, I would be informed. To my knowledge, there's no different form unless it is kind of adulterated or changed by Dr. Cole himself. But I could be wrong.
Well, I can guarantee one thing. That's what his representative said. I'm not saying it's true or it's false, but his representative 35 years after.
Well, let me tell you this. I've read, and I am guilty of this. I am not really active on the message forum. I don't read it a lot, but I have read some of the postings of this guy 35 years after. I think he's trying to be helpful, and I think that in many instances he is. But you have to understand that, he takes whatever Dr. Cole says as the gospel. And sometimes I'm not 100% sure if he fully understands or grasps what Dr. Cole is trying to get out there. Dr. Cole is an incredibly smart guy. He uses a lot of medical jargon when he speaks. He expresses himself in a very technical way, and I have to tell you that sometimes I have to kind of listen to him twice before I understand what he's saying. And even when I'm on the phone with him, I'm like, listen, let me look that up because I don't even know what you're saying half the time. It's possible that some of the stuff that 35 years after is putting out there online might be misinformation. I'm not saying that it is, but that seems odd. Now, you said that he claims that Dr. Feller is doing the same thing?
No, he didn't say Dr. Feller. I said I thought Dr. Bauman mentioned something about that tonight. That's what I said.
No. Dr. Bauman is basically he's involved with a compounding company that puts together a minoxidil, a more potent minoxidil compound. I don't think that they're adulterating ACell in any way that I'm aware of. And, take some of the things that are put online, especially by representatives, with a grain of salt, because some of it could be marketing. Now, again, Dr. Cole is a respected and accepted member of the IHRS. Him and his representative are allowed to post on our message forum. He's doing incredible hair transplants. But, everyone is trying to get a leg up in this industry. So it's possible that this particular representative might be a little overzealous in the way he's explaining things. All I can say is I'm pretty sure Dr. Cole would contact me if he was doing something radically different, or if there was some radical different form of ACell that he was utilizing in his practice. That's all I can say.
This representative is insinuating that they're getting much, much better results with this particular form of ACell. And regeneration, especially when beard hair is in play, it's much more robust. The beard hair will grow with this.
I gotta call bullshit on the regeneration with ACell. I think that there's possible, if the hair is transected correctly, and when I say correctly, that is all done blindly anyway, ACell will help with regenerating that follicle. We have seen. We just haven't seen regeneration from ACell unless there's been a transected hair, and Jerry Cooley was able to prove that in his studies. Unless Dr. Cole is doing something radically different and just out of this world, almost like science fiction, which I guess is possible, I don't believe in the regeneration rates, the regenerative rates that maybe be putting out there, that some people are putting out there online. And again, this is a guy that I work with. He may be pissed. He may call me up to say, what the fuck are you talking about, man? Why are you saying that on the air? But I got to tell you guys the truth. I'm the one who has to sleep at night. When you guys go to our message forum and read this stuff, and if you ask me about it directly, I have to sleep at night. And if I am not convinced, I am not going to bullshit you.
You never do. You always tell the truth.
I get shit for it, but I have to. Look, I had Dr. Bauman on the show. How many years has it taken me to, even consider that, low-level laser therapy might be beneficial. I haven't seen the evidence. I thought it was a lot of smoke and mirrors. I thought there was a lot of bullshit involved. One of the main companies that wanted me to endorse their product, I almost did, because I thought, wait a second, it was represented as being FDA approved at one point, and then we found out that it was actually FDA cleared, and I had to pull back the reins. And I'm just like, there's no way I can get involved with these companies. There's no way I can provide them with the American Hair Loss Association seal, and there's certainly no way that I can take any endorsement money for putting my name on something or doing a commercial for them. And these are all things that have been offered to me in the past, and I'm not talking about a small amount of money, guys. I mean, this is money that you guys would kill for. Would be life-changing for most Americans. So I'm not here to pat myself on the back. I'm just here to say, listen, I got to sleep at night. And, for the first time in 15 years, I'm starting to think we're seeing much more evidence with low-level light therapy or laser light therapy. Can't speak tonight.
Well, maybe that's due to the fact that Dr. Bauman is using much, much stronger diodes than has previously been on the market.
Right. Well, there's a couple of products. The laser guy that Dr. Bauman is affiliated with or associated with, or who sells in his practice. There's this laser helmet that seems to be effective for people. And I'm telling you, I'm starting to get blown away by some of the results that I am seeing. And I'm like, wow, I should have invested in this company. But then again, there could be a placebo effect involved. The data is still not completely in my view, where I can say, you know what, get this product. I endorse this product. But let me tell you something. When that day comes, I'm going to cash that check. I want you guys to be aware of it.
Well, you deserve it. Well, man, I make a quick suggestion. Why don't you have your staff notify Dr. Alan Feller, and him and Dr. Bauman could have a rematch in the debating the effects.
Well, you know what? I would, but I have to tell you that I think Dr. Feller is kind of like out of that picture right now. He is just concentrating on moving hair, doing what he does best. He has not been involved in the online world, and I have to tell you, I think he's enjoying not being in the limelight and not being as involved as he once was.
Yeah, he's not involved at all, really.
No, he doesn't. Well, first of all, he doesn't need to. He built his practice. People are coming to him just word of mouth, and the fact that he has such a stellar reputation online. He doesn't need to go out there and interact with people, and also some of the crazies that are out there. Putting himself in a position where a lot of these guys they're put into position on certain message forums where they have to defend themselves against anonymous posters who could be their competitors. I mean, it's what goes on out there in the online world is insane. So I think the fact that Alan Feller stepped back from it and is just basically relying on the fact that he's putting out some tremendous work, I think it's probably better for him on a personal level. So I don't know if he'd come back on the air to talk about lasers. And frankly, I don't know if he's done any further research on low-level laser therapy since his last talk with Dr. Bauman. Now, that was a great debate. It was one of the...
I wouldn't exactly call it debate. It got a little personal there for a while, I think.
I don't know if it was personal, but it was, let's put it this way, it was good radio.
Heated. It was heated.
It was really good radio. Well, listen, Joe, yeah, go ahead.
Okay, just 10 seconds. And I know your other calls. Tell everybody out there, phase 2B of Biomonopros results from allergen will be announced in the next 3 to 4 months. Whether it works or not, I have no idea. Thank you for the time, Spencer. I appreciate it. And I'll speak to you soon, my friend.
All right, man. Listen, thank you so much. You sound great, by the way. I'm glad you're doing well.
Thank you, my friend.
All right, take care.
God bless you.
Thank you. 888-659-3727. That's 888-659-3727. I want to talk about something. It's a little off topic, but it has to do with the bald truth. It has to do with this broadcast. I was contacted today by somebody who's relatively well known in the radio world, who asked if I would be willing to speak not even on a panel, but just basically be like a speaker in front of a bunch of people in terrestrial radio, conventional radio, to discuss the power and the nuances of internet broadcasting. And what I found really funny about this, or ironic about this, is that this is a guy who, at one point in my career, and this is relatively early on, but I was already on the air on radio for about 2 years. This is a guy who actually, hold on for a second, someone's trying to call my Skype. This is a guy who actually, at one point, told me he had no understanding of the concept of my program. He's like, how is this a show? How is this going to work? How is there going to be any success? How are you going to have any success? And he was shocked that I was even on the radio. Now, what a lot of you guys don't know, especially you guys who are listening to the broadcast who were maybe in real radio, there was a time when I was actually being paid for my broadcast by CBS Radio here in Los Angeles. It was a unique deal where basically it was almost like a licensing agreement where I didn't have to be in a union. I didn't have to join AFTRA. They wanted to air my broadcast and sell time as if it was their local broadcast, as if I was being paid by them on a salary basis. And I thought it was a unique situation. I decided to do it. I had already been on the air in New York for about 6 or 7 months. And then I was, contacted by the station here, which was KLSX in Los Angeles. Jesus, I'm getting all kinds of buzzes and... All right, it looks like we're having some sort of problem with our video. So let me see if I could actually fix that. For some reason, my camera may have gone off. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to get back on to the subject in a second. I'm going to take a very quick break, and let's see if we can hook up with GFQ again. The phone number is 888-659-3727. That's 888-659-3727. I'll come back. I'm going to finish my thought, and we're going to take a couple of more phone calls. So stay with us. All right, guys, that was weird, but thanks for your patience. 888-659-3727 is the toll-free number. So to get back to my story, so I was asked to speak in this. It's not really a conference, but it was just a group of guys who been in radio for a long time. It's kind of a large group, and they do these little seminars, and they wanted me to speak on internet broadcasting. What I thought was really funny is, for the most part, I was a brokered program on national radio. When things didn't work out with CBS, when they were selling my broadcast to service providers and companies who I really, I couldn't agree with, I couldn't feel comfortable with my listenership using these products and services, I'm like, you know what? We agreed to work in one way. You guys have decided to work in another way. I'm just going to broker the time. So give me a price. I will pay for the airtime, and I will go out and then sell the airtime. Once you do that, conventional radio considers you an infomercial. Even if you're not selling any products or services, you are an infomercial because you're brokering time, especially when you're brokering weekend time. I was like, you know what? I could live with that. It's fine. I'm an independent broadcaster. I will make a go of this. I will become successful on my own. Now, what this taught me, and what, this basically provided me with a certain skill set that conventional broadcasters just don't have. I was given the opportunity by this happening to learn how to sell my own show, to learn how to broadcast, to learn everything about the industry. I used the call letters and the airwaves and the signals of these stations to sell my product in a way that they could not sell it themselves. They were selling commercial spots on a Sunday night for $50. I was able to sell it at a premium because I'm doing the Bald Show, and I knew how to sell it and who to sell it to. And I was giving these guys the opportunity to be attached to me where their competitors couldn't be attached to me because I wouldn't recommend their competitors. And my listeners knew that anyone who was sponsoring the show was doing good work, was helping people, was a product or service that worked. And this was a unique concept for radio, and they never understood it. And then when I was on 10 markets, and then 20 markets, and then in 30 markets across the country, and we're talking major FM talk stations and AM stations, nobody understood it. They didn't get it. And until this day, I'm like the Rodney Dangerfield of radio. I never really got any respect from the real radio world, and I was fine with that. They did their thing. I did my thing. I was on the air, and at least as far as my listeners were concerned, it didn't make a difference. 16 years later, all of a sudden, I'm the guy that they want speaking in front of their constituency. Because radio is in the shitter now, because no one understands how to really make a living in radio. They're like, wait a second, let's scramble. This guy somehow has been able to do it. And now he's not even on the radio. He just puts on this stupid camera on his microphone in his house, and he's able to succeed. We want to learn from this guy. I thought that was ironic. And let me tell you, I believe that it's because of the nature of the show, the subject matter, the huge demographic of hair loss sufferers that most radio listeners, most internet broadcast viewers, men at least, will suffer with some degree of hair loss. That's why we've been able to be so successful, obviously besides the way the show is run. So I thought there's a real lesson here. And I thought it's just amazing how broadcasting is evolving. And that this hair loss show is a shining example of what a successful internet broadcast is. And I think that's great for hair loss sufferers around the world because it makes us one step closer to being taken seriously. When I speak in front of these guys, I'm not talking about my wacky morning show or my tech show or any of the usual suspects. I'm talking about my success doing a hair loss show. How insane is that? But you know what? Now they're looking at us seriously. 888-659-3727. Let's see who this is. Hey, you're on the air. Who's this?
Yeah, this is Brian.
Brian Monroe, how are you, man?
Doing good. I wanted to reiterate and say what you're saying there. 100% correct about selling your own show and the new model they believe that's kind of going on now in radio and just in general internet broadcasting. Because I believe 100% that you're going to know how best to sell your show, who's going to be listening, the demographics, and especially who's going to really want to be buying into, supporting the show.
That's right.
And so you're going to have a passion for it. It makes more sense for you doing it than a salesman or saleswoman or whatever to go out there and try to sell a show. They don't understand. They're not in touch with the viewers. They're not involved with the process and everything. So, it makes sense.
And I appreciate you calling in to talk about this because I know that you're passionate about internet broadcasting. I know you watch this broadcast and mostly, all the shows on GFQ.
Right.
But what I find really fascinating is that when I first got into radio, the first thing, and I guess this is a compelling point, the first thing that I noticed when I was introduced to the sales team, the guys who were going to sell my show, I mean, it was like the lowest common denominator of humans, in my view. I never saw a group of people who seemed so inept And they didn't understand. It was all based on, okay, well, we can only sell the show based on these Arbitron ratings. And on Sunday nights, we only get these numbers. I'm like, listen, here's the list. If you tell them that you're selling Spencer Kobren's The Bald Truth, these guys will buy the show. And they're like, no, we have a list that was given to us by the station, and we have to go with a local, we want to go with, there was like a local sub shop and all this stuff. I just couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe how they would it was like talking to a brick wall.
The problem with, generally speaking, salesmen, whatever, potentially in that situation might end up being is they don't understand some customers are better customers than others, or maybe better places to go to as far as looking for business,
Right.
And they think it's all equal, and it's not. I mean, you could end up being where you could be on the show, and unfortunately I don't know, the demographics of this show, but, could end up being you could be serving a market that has a lot of money, that disposable money, that is, upscale and, is good to go as far as buying products that they.
The demographic of this show are guys who are willing to spend $20,000 on a hair transplant. That's the demographic.
Is that the case? Those people exactly are the kind of customers that you want to. And if the salesmen or saleswomen that you're talking about that don't understand how to sell that, well, that's, like I said, it sounds like they're completely inept. They have to understand their market, and they're not just selling tires or something like that or whatever. This is actually.
Let's put it this way, and I am not interested in talking about the income of the broadcast or whatever, but at a time when they were selling airtime before my show was on their station for $50 for a commercial during that time, we were able to command $1,500 for 30 seconds.
Yep.
So I think that is the lesson there. And when I explained that to them, I never forget when I walked into the station and I said, listen, I really want to become more, I want The Bald Truth to be more of a part of KLSX. I know you promote the show a little bit on the weekends and during the week, but and I have to pay for those commercials. But if you make us more of a part of the station, kind of like with your regular weekday shows, even though we're on the weekend, I will basically split the revenue with you, and and this is the revenue that we're able to make. And I never forget this one guy looking at me. Excuse me, and this is actually a hair loss sufferer who was in denial, and he said, that's a nice check. And I showed him the check that I was able to get for that month. He goes, but you're not going to be able to do that consistently. And I said, are you kidding me? I said, this is nothing. I said, if I actually go out there with a team to sell this thing, you guys will make more money on the weekend than you make during the entire week. The only money they were really making at the time was from the Howard Stern show. They were selling everything around Stern. There were like 20 minutes of commercials during Stern. And as soon as Stern was taken off those stations and went over to Sirius, all these stations collapsed. So that kind of gives you an idea of how well they were doing with their other broadcasts. I could have brought them not only tremendous momentum on the weekends, but real money. And not one person would listen to me. And the truth is, there was no skin off my back. I just kind of wanted to get a little bit of respect for the program that we were doing and show them that, listen, this could really earn for you guys. And then I decided, you know what, I'm never going to get through that wall. I might as well keep the money myself and do what I have to do. And just, my listeners, they didn't know any difference. To my listeners, I was part of the station.
Right. And also, don't forget, you're being your own boss is the better thing, because then you're, like I said, you're able to take the whole reins by the horns and bull by the horns, whatever, and run with it. And you don't have to worry about them saying certain things, this and that, or this is not going to work, or this and that. It was especially you're saying you're buying time, right? You're saying, right?
You're basically an advertiser. That's what you're right. Considered an advertiser. And I just never forget, it was funny when that whole Howard Stern thing went down. This was years ago. This is like 12 years ago. He kept saying on the air to my sidekick who called in that you guys aren't even a radio show. You're an infomercial. You have to buy your time. And go ahead.
I was going to say, he has to say that to save face for what he's doing, in essence. That's the way I feel about it.
Well, but this is my point.
What you're doing in your show. I'm sorry, Roger. I'm saying discount your show, what you're doing, for him actually being on the other side, not before he did Sirius. I don't know if with Sirius he owns his own show or not, but if you don't have ownership and he's just getting paid as an employee, basically, of whatever, he's going to feel a little jealous about that potentially. I mean, I would think.
Well, I don't know if there was jealousy involved, but I actually thought that, he just, at the time, he couldn't grasp the concept of it. And he just kept saying, well, you're not selling anything. How do you make money? And how do we make money? He's in the same business as anyone in radio. anyone who's broadcasting is in the advertising and marketing business. I happen to market and advertise good medicine. That's unusual. No one actually does that, but I am in a position where I'm able to do that. Howard Stern and other broadcasters, unfortunately, are put into a position where they have to advertise and market anything that stations or the syndicators are able to sell. So, for instance, if Howard Stern had to do a spot, was being paid to do a spot for a large chain clinic that may be butchering people, it would be his responsibility to do that spot, whether or not, he believed in the product or not. And that sadly puts people in harm's way. I was in a position where while we were in the same business, I was able to make choices and really safely communicate my message and market and advertise companies that I believed in. That had never been done before. So,
also,
go ahead.
I was going to say the other thing is the question of trust, the way I see it. If you talk about a broadcaster and whatever, and they start going and marketing anything and everything, you're going to lose trust in them, especially if they have products that aren't that good, let's say, that they're marketing, because you feel like they're just taking the money and they're basically leaving you hanging to dry because you basically believe they said X, Y, and Z product was good.
Yeah, but people listen. People are stupid though. When it comes to radio, you hear anybody who's on the radio and they're marketing, all types of herbal supplements or whatever it is. And it's like, hey, basically the bottom line is I'm a celebrity. I'm talking about this. You're listening to my show, so it must be good. You think these guys really believe in the products that they're hawking? All they care about is their broadcast. They're there to do a show that's going to entertain people and draw an audience. And the advertising and the marketing, that is just a means to an end. That's all it is to them.
Which is why I'm saying they can't be idealistic about it. They just have to just take it and go with it. And like I said, their brand or their trust of their brand, I can say their name, to me is going to be harmed by that. That's just the way I see it's different from what you're doing and other internet broadcasters are doing. Is you can stand up and say, what, this is what I believe in, and I'm going to go with these products I believe in because I believe there's a bunch of great products out there that I can support and don't have to basically I can issue away, like you said basically earlier on the show, about people maybe willing to write you a big check potentially if you don't feel that it's worthwhile, because you want the longevity of your broadcast to matter for something versus not.
And that's right. And I appreciate you saying that. And I think that's why I have the clear advantage in internet broadcasting. That's why I brought this up. And I thought it was really interesting when this particular person who once said, "How is that a show?" is now coming to me saying, "Hey, you know what? I want you to speak to our guys. I want you to give them a little hope that there is a way for them to, transition from terrestrial radio and conventional radio and make a living and become a successful internet broadcaster." And, my whole thing is my model online is the exact same model that I used on the air for the last 16 years. You don't see me on this program. There's not one commercial. And there's a reason for that. I don't have to make the money directly from commercials in the show. Now, do I have the opportunity to do that? Yes. Has Andrew at times asked me to do a read for him or whatever it is? I don't mind doing that. But I don't want to litter my broadcast with, 10-minute commercial breaks just to make money. The beauty of the internet is there are ways to make a living outside of the broadcast itself, because the internet is a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week opportunity for advertisers, and no one gets that.
Right, and the whole entire thing about the show is it lasts on, I won't say forever, but for a long time. And, you could go back a month or a year later and still listen to a show, and as long as the advertiser that you want to hear about or that's associated with the show is there, it still has value. I mean,
that's right.
Versus a broadcast that goes away, seriously, seconds after it's gone. So,
listen, it's all coming out now about what was happening with Arbitron and all the ratings, and this is not to say anything against Arbitron or Nielsen, but everything is based on percentages.
Allegedly.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Everything's allegedly, or everything's based on percentages, and the truth is, no one really knew what the numbers were. So, when advertisers would buy airtime, it was based on a percentage that was gleaned from a very small pool, a very small survey type of a situation where people were asked to fill out books and shit like that. Completely archaic, and it's still archaic. Even with the people meter, it's still archaic. It's still not based on real numbers. On the internet, everything is it's completely changed the game. And radio still doesn't get it. They can't grasp that.
Well, it's transparent on the internet. That's the thing.
It's transparent on the internet, but there's also other ways that broadcasters, besides their broadcast themselves, if they develop a good following, whether it's through social media or whether it's through their own websites or message forums, whatever it is, there are ways to to become successful without filling your show with commercials or having. And there's nothing wrong with affiliate codes and stuff like that. That seems to be the norm in the industry. But there are a lot of ways to earn and a lot of ways to become successful. And when I speak to these guys in radio, there's one really, listen, one of my favorite guys who's transitioned, and I think you're a fan too, is you like Tom Likas, right?
Yeah, he's good message. I think he's basically helping a lot of guys out there that need the kind of help on different issues, obviously, in this show, of course,
Right.
That I think he's doing a good job, honestly. I mean, he's made the point, honestly. When I show up, I've heard him say this, hey, I'm the guy, basically, he's the African guy that's filling a slot, and, he's definitely aware he's an entertainer. He's aware of that, but he's also a businessman.
Well, he's an entertainer. He's aware of that, but he also knows that he's in the business of marketing and advertising, and he's the first one to admit it. I think that he's kind of connected to the old school model, the traditional terrestrial radio model of advertisers, which I think is it can work and is obviously working for him. But I think there's so much more that he can be doing as far as he's always talking about turning that profit. There's so much more that he can be doing to turn that profit more quickly that most conventional advertisers or radio hosts it's hard for them to conceive of and understand because they've just been hosting a show for 20 years or 30 years. They've never had to do it themselves. And I think that's why, I have the clear advantage. That's why I got like Andrew Zarian, who he may never have been on the radio, but he's always had to go out there and sell himself. He's got a clear advantage.
And I was going to say about Tom Likas that, he definitely does literally show some with advertising and everything else. And I find that will put off some people, but of course his, what they call P1s or whatever, his regular high-end, his good callers or supporters, they seem to be fine with it, and that's great. And so that works for them, and that's fine, Well,
I think it would be I think it's stupid to be put off by it. I think the fact is that listeners have to understand that the way this guy is surviving is through advertising, and that's what radio is all about. And if you can't listen to a couple of ads, then you know what? There's something wrong with you, in my view.
No. What I'm saying basically becomes a question whether or not you're concerned about how you don't want to go back to the old model. Let's just say I don't want 10 minutes of commercials for like 10 minutes of content or whatever it's going to be. It's kind of the pre-roll ads on the internet videos. So it'll be like a 30-second 1 minute pre-roll commercial, or whatever, for a 30-second video, and you're going like, there's no. It's out of whack. You get what I'm saying? That's what I'm just trying to say. That's the industry's kind of gone the other way. I think the radio did, and they really screwed themselves up, and even TiVo to an extent, but by having so many ads, even though I understand they need them to pay for broadcast licenses and other things, it's gotten to a point where the balance has gone, so we're looking at other options as far as ways to get entertainment and everything.
Well, let me tell you, if I thought the market was big enough, honestly, and it's not, I would write a book, I would have it published, and, I could do that just for credentialing purposes if I want to. Mm-hmm. And I know that one of my publishers would publish the book. But, there is a certain kind of a treasure map, I guess. There's a certain way to really conduct this business that I think most internet broadcast or most terrestrial radio guys getting into internet broadcasting can never understand. It's just, it's such a simple light bulb kind of moment when someone figures it out and realizes that what they can do. They're like, oh, my God, that's so simple. Why have we been doing it this way for so long? But, to me, it's kind of like, screw it. I could talk Tom Blue in the face. What I've learned is you can give somebody the keys to the castle, but most people can never actually turn those keys.
Well, the problem for them, of course, is they're just used to their model. And just like what happened with the record industry, with what was going on with CD sales and other things, they're overcharging people ultimately for what the product they're getting. Like you were buying one CD for $18 to buy one song, and that just didn't make any sense.
Right.
You know what I mean, right? And at a certain point, that had to change. It needed to be changed, and it did. So that's fine. Now it's better for the consumer, bad maybe some for the industry, but it's definitely better in the overall scheme of things now. So,
Well, and I agree. And I think I do want to say that I think that the Likas model is it's working for him. And I think that
Yeah.
as far as internet broadcasting, as far as doing an audio show and doing radio on the internet, they're doing an incredible job. I mean, it is it's a pleasure to listen to as far as the production values. I love the fact that Gary and Dino are on the air. I think that Tom is doing a tremendous job at what he does and what he does best. This guy he's forgotten more about broadcasting than I'll ever know. I don't know about business. I mean, I would say that I've been incorporated since 1991, since I was a kid, and I have never since then I have not had to work for anybody. So I think I have a lot of experience in that route. But there's no doubt that he is probably, if not the best internet broadcaster on the air today, he's probably in the top 10 for sure.
Yeah, I definitely see he's definitely up there. I mean, I know that Alan Carolla does a pretty good job also, apparently, so, and there's a few other ones too, that are out there. And no question that it's something that these guys need to look at, and broadcasters need to look at and say, hey, we need to take advantage of this, because it's sort of the direction things are going. I think also you're reaching a larger audience than you ever could using traditional broadcast radio,
Oh my God, it's not even funny. Dude, we get calls. I've had people call from Israel, Brazil.
I was going to ask you about that. So yeah, I was going to assume that, anybody that's English speaking that's able to pick up the show and understand what's kind of going on. I mean, it's not that the advertisers are going to be able to affect all of them, but at least the idea of the content of the show can be there, and things can work out one way or the other. The way I see it,
dude. So, I've done maybe 10 or 12 UK shows. We have been, in the BBC, on BBC Radio. We have been on multiple papers. I don't have a publicist. I don't send out press releases. These people have contacted us, and we've done maybe 12 shows for the UK, and it's like I was actually contacted yesterday by a London paper. So it's fascinating. It's all they do is they just find us.
And the thing about this show, again, is because you're dealing with a subject matter it seems like a lot of people aren't talking about.
Right.
It also provides you a wider growth area to go into, because you're not in such a competitive marketplace. Like, you talk to the tech shows. every computer nerdy kind of guy basically puts up videos on YouTube or does whatever.
They're trying.
And they're trying, and it's just a lot harder, because to break out, even if you're doing an excellent job, production quality and everything else, just even getting noticed is hard and stuff.
Well,
so,
with that said, and that's a good point. There have been many, and I'm talking about at least 10 that I can think of off the top of my head, guys who've tried to do hair loss shows. One guy actually got backed by some of the biggest companies in the industry and tried to take my time slot on KLSX. The company, that's when I left. The company came to me and said, "Listen, there's this other guy who wants to pay double what you're paying for your time slot," and I was like, "You're kidding me! I've been with you for 7 years, and this is." He goes, "Well, if you're willing to match what they're willing to pay, we guarantee you the spot for as long as you want it." I just said, "F you," and I went to another station. And you know what? That company lasted 6 months, even though they had good backing. They couldn't sell what they were trying to sell. They couldn't sell a hair transplant. It was hilarious to me.
Either the guy didn't believe what he was doing there, or obviously maybe he wasn't as good of a broadcaster.
Listen, this guy called himself the authority on hair loss. This guy has a newspaper that actually is an industry rag, so to speak, and maybe I shouldn't use the word rag, but it's an industry paper. And everyone in the industry knows him. And basically, he was pro-industry as opposed to, in my view, pro-consumer. And you know what? You don't think listeners know that? Consumers, they sense that. So listen, is my video going? Is my video working for you?
Your video's still working, yeah.
Okay,
still
good.
Going.
Well, listen, Brian, I got a call tonight, and I know that we went off topic a little bit, everybody, but I just think it's really interesting that it's the hair loss show that conventional radio is now coming to get information about internet broadcasting. And it's probably because I was connected and I was on radio for such a long time. But the fact is, I was the Rodney Dangerfield of radio. I got no respect. And now they're trying to figure out my model. It's hilarious to me.
Well, it's poetic justice, as the saying goes. So there you go.
Well, I appreciate it. And Brian, man, I appreciate the call. This is your first call to the show.
Yeah, well, it's fun. It just gives you have to talk about something other than hair loss because this is more interesting. I'm sorry to defend anybody, but it's more my subject matter as far as tech and what's going on in the industry. And
listen, you're a sufferer. You're a sufferer yourself as far as other people are concerned, but you're not really a sufferer because you don't really care. You're able to live your life and feel completely comfortable in your own skin.
I'm happy with life. It's good. Life is good. So
Well, I like that about you, Brian. Listen, man, I appreciate the call. We'll talk soon.
Cheers. Talk to you later.
All right, take it easy. Guys, I apologize for going off topic if you're concerned about that for some reason. But you know what? I'm deciding that if I'm going to do a 2-hour broadcast, I'm going to do what I want to do. I thought this was an interesting subject. I'm glad that someone called in to talk about it. I'm glad that Brian Monroe, who is a huge fan of internet broadcasting, a big fan of the GFQ network, he calls into the free-for-all, and he's involved with a lot of the broadcasts, and he's a good guy. And that kind of really understands this medium in many ways a lot better than a lot of people who are actually involved in the medium. And that's why I appreciate him. Guys, listen, I will be live. I think I'll be live next week. If not, I'll let you know. Well, I won't let you know. If not, you'll find out. But I want to thank Dr. Alan Bauman for joining us tonight. As usual, you can check him out on baumanmedical.com or through the IHRS website, which is iahrs.org. You could also want to thank Carrie and wish him a happy birthday and congratulations on your stellar hair transplant. I know from all the people that have contacted me over the years who have had good results just how life-changing a good surgical hair restoration can really be. So enjoy that, man. It's not like getting a new suit or whatever. I mean, this is your hair. And the fact that you can now comb it and look in the mirror and feel even more comfortable in your own skin. I mean, you seem like a pretty comfortable guy to begin with, but I think it's terrific. And I hope that you call into the program again if you're listening right now, or if you watch this on the archive broadcast, and call in and let us know how you are progressing. Let me give out the phone number. Let me give out the websites for The Bald Truth. Of course, go to thebaldtruth.com to watch archives of this broadcast. If you want to learn more about hair loss, check out the American Hair Loss Association website at americanhairloss.org. If you're considering surgical hair restoration, check out iahrs.org. That is the website for the International Alliance of Hair Restoration Surgeons. And if you want to communicate with other hair loss sufferers online, check out our message forum, which is baldtruthtalk.com. Until next time, be strong, God bless, and thank you so much for listening.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry for any inconvenience you may have been put to prior to the programme, and I'm glad you enjoyed it. And if you could now leave by the exits at the rear, that'd be splendid. Thank you. Good night.